Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Voice Summit brings us together to appreciate the challenges facing conversational AI better. More learning for me with a few visionaries and many esteemed organizations sharing their offering. Trust you're all having fabulous time at VOICE22. I'd like to thank the organizers for this particular opportunity and many thanks, Jamie, for guiding me through the process. We are happy to share our learning with you that we developed with inputs from both from academic research as well as with observations on of some key products in the marketplace. Hopefully, you'll find our proposition and suggestions helpful. I come from marketing communications background, having spent over 2 decades between WPP as well as Omnicom Group in India as well as Asia Pacific. And now I'm pursuing my PhD in consumer behavior focused on technology marketing. As we step into the discussion, just one point I want to make. I will be using this particular term WAP, which we coined essentially as a common term for all voice applications. Each platform has a name, so we basically felt it appropriate in line with the common voice text standard that is likely to happen sometime in the future. Let's get started. Why bring up this topic of voice BI? Virtual assistants in the form of chatbots or voice enabled have been observed to be performing a role of a Q&A assistant at best. Maybe they have progressed from passive to generative, but intuitive is still in the desired zone. Contextuality of the responses, I think, is one of the most critical things which will be key for conversational AI agents to be very, very successful. And as a Marcom guy, I can tell you contextual targeting is our everyday job. Yeah. And therefore, how should your knowledge repository be filled and how you will take it forward is something that we will see through a couple of stages here. First stage, we are speaking about adoption, within which there is definitely space for 4 different types of responses that actually come through. Cognitive, affective, cognitive. Cognitive is essentially intention to perform, and then actual performance of the task, the behavior. These are the steps in adoption. So what are we solving for? And therefore, what is the type of information that is required for each of these is something that we need to think through a bit. And which is why my first question would be, why do users use your web? Or more importantly, why should they come back and reuse your content or use more content from your particular voice application? We all start with an objective, which technically means value resides in the object in the context of customer value theory. While we say that, on the other hand, on the other end of the spectrum, we speak about the value completely dependent on consumer or customer experience. Right? And the product developers know this really well. That won't work. It is always about finding the sweet spot in between, and therefore everybody goes through this whole customer discovery process as Stephen Blank put it together. The business intelligence and its need has already started. We are talking about market, competitive intelligence, so on and so forth. With your objective, you are likely to develop a very fantastic moat. But whether that moat is saving you to ensuring to fill a gap in the marketplace, whether it is a market structure of an existing solution or a market gap of a non-existing solution, whichever way you look at it, right? And then is that moat helping you fortify your value proposition, leading to a very strong USP to help build your reputation? Right, I will follow through this point in engagement as well. So how do you get there? And more importantly, how do you stay there? After getting there, there are several responses that you are likely to look for from the customers, consumers, users, as you might actually look at. And each of the responses have different types of needs and wants. Are your responses relevant? Are they contextually relevant? Are they, more importantly, contextually relevant, providing enough content support, additional content support, if you will? Yeah. Add to this are the nuances of language, dialect, and ability to follow accent. I'd recommend you look up Netflix TV ad for Lupin. It is spelled Lupin, but that actually demonstrates the effect of accent. This is in case you already have it. Each of those responses are because of a cognitive or affective response from the customers. Understanding them, diving deep, and this is obviously beyond your dashboard metrics that you would actually look at, and developing that intelligence is really key for you to stay in the game. Another thought or another demand that users are putting these days is about them having a say on the privacy and security. Yeah, there are quite a few papers that have been written, and the conversational AI is also going through several times. 2018, people were very, very skeptical about speaking to devices in the public spaces. Today, that is not a stigma or a reservation anymore. However, people still have reservations in speaking about their specific personal problems to the devices, and therefore, how do you really help them overcome those ones? Bravo Tango is a mental health app developed for US veterans, Nat Geo plus Google, I think. They have in-depth user behavior understanding, and that is so. If you're not going to assure people that their data is safe with you, and importantly, when you look at that particular chart, we're talking about only first-party data or first-party applications are green. Every other app in that particular chart does not have a very clear-cut privacy policy. So why should the people users really trust your apps? Uh, to wrap up this particular stage, and we would recommend leveraging all the available resources, given that you're operating within a ecosystem and you're trying to solve a particular problem for the user. So it is not about championing voice. It is not about creating the web and it being standalone, not serving a big purpose for the customer. Think social media, you have gone through those kinds of cases. And now I would also want to emphasize on, like social media walled gardens, there is going to be data for voice gardens as well. We already have multiple agents, Alexa, Bixby, Google, and so on and so forth. Have multiple devices and lot many more devices here, simply because most smart home devices that you're trying to control are single function, but they're all devices. Alexa Live 2022 already spoke about a multi-agent experience via single platform as an Alexa speaker, for an instance. So that is likely to add more confusion. So in this particular context, we strongly recommend at an agent level, probably misattribution is going to be far more controlled, but at a device level, the misattribution is likely to be much higher. We have seen this in the case of social media. So when you're devising, designing the flow of data, please make sure you're actually thinking of this in that particular context. Because into the future, when you want to improve your apps, that particular data is the one which is going to be helpful for you. Now, I'll quickly move into engagement. Uh, Very simply, from a theoretical point of view, it is antecedents, it is behavior, it is consequence. Antecedents is citrate essentially. In the coding language, given that most of you are from technical background, I'll just put it in this way that antecedents sit before input, then there is process, then there is output, and then there are consequences. So if that is a kind of a scenario, what have we actually published? When we are engaging with apps or agents, we looked at a three-tiered approach, which is the default apps that are there. Nothing fancy about it. Then there are custom apps, but then we figured out there are very extremely specific specialty applications or apps actually being created in this particular context. And so when we were defining those, we actually took help of a task complexity grid devised by Campbell in 1988. You can look up that particular paper. It basically outlines the profile of task, and it also tells you the kind of multiplicity of the outputs or the outcome and the outcomes actually, if you really look at it in that particular grid. I won't go through the entire chart. You can actually look up that particular paper. Uh, One thing I just wanted to make a point about is the outcome uncertainty. I'd like to visualize a ball game, baseball, football, cricket, or whatever comes to your mind, and think about how you will think about the game before it starts, when the game is in progress, after the game is done, and think about the variation that comes into your thinking, and if you're discussing with the friends or whichever way you look at it. And it's not just purely the game, it'll obviously include the players, the dynamics, and so on and so forth. So just to raise the complexity of it, let's add this game is happening in a stadium, and in stadium there are audiences. So therefore, the number of people that are likely to come through, the ticket size, the and rest of the dynamics that happen at the stadium. Take it to live streaming, take it to live broadcast, and so on and so forth. And also, where possible, go the extent of the odds. So when you think through this entire dynamic, all of that will start applying to your thinking when you're actually going through this particular task profiling for your voice application. What we did is basically when we looked at these three tiers of applications, we also started looking at how to improve your contextuality in that particular order. So simple delegatable tasks. Then there is a funnel of action. You order a Starbucks, you order a pizza, and so on and so forth. Or maybe you order a flight ticket using mobile app or web app, whichever way you look at it. Start thinking in that particular order. The last one, the specialty apps are extremely purpose-driven applications. Why is it important? We looked at the dependence on these different types of apps. The delegatable ones, you can do it on any device, any agent. The funnel ones, you have to custom develop an app, so it all depends on the scale of investment that goes in. So whether you want to be present on only Amazon Alexa or only on Google is up to the budget that gets decided. But the third one is the one where the dependence actually is extremely high. It's almost like you have to make yourself indispensable to be in that kind of space. The value proposition fortification applies here, and this is where you can, when you are building your reputation, when you're building your value, when you're building the entire product or the feature, think about if you can make yourself indispensable, irreplaceable, then you are likely to survive the onslaught of your competition, and you're likely to survive the onslaught of multimodal interactions as well. So when you're designing products, probably these were the ones which came to our mind when we were putting this particular paper together. I will run some of those VAPs that are already present uh, through a framework in a minute. So take it to the next most important thing, or probably the final important thing is that you do have lots of dashboards giving you frequency, recency, stickiness, and sometimes monetary value, and so on and so forth. Uh, Take it one more step deeper. Why are people dropping off? What is the abandon rate? So more abandon rate you will get out of dashboard, but the reason why people are abandoning is something that you won't get out of dashboard. And we've seen this in the case of mobile applications. Some actually start with fantastic numbers, but then die down soon. Some applications, they start slow, they build, and evolve into a much better solution and become market leaders sometimes. So you could actually start thinking through those ones. And one of the most important things that you should bear in mind when you're developing custom apps and specialty apps is tracking progress. What is the impact? How are you progressing? And so on and so forth. This should essentially, um, make or help you become accountable for the kind of solution that you are putting into the marketplace. So we've answered three big things: task complexity and how it is likely to help you fortify your value proposition, and how it is likely to help you deep dive in providing uh, not just one response, but a knowledge base of responses that a customer or a user might actually start looking for, or maybe you're solving a real world problem. So, which is what I will cover in the framework that I was actually mentioning. So, here's the framework. Uh, we used the six scales when we put together. We published in 21, so the cases are all of 2019 and 2020. Most of you may know probably all of these particular cases, but a couple of points I want to make here. Voice it. This is an Israeli firm. In fact, uh, on the webinar yesterday night, this was being discussed. That application converts mumbles of a person who cannot speak legibly into command to help him switch on and off TV, change channels, and do such activities for himself, liberating him from 100% dependence on another individual within the household. That is a kind of specificity that application has been developed with. There are a couple others. Bravatanga I mentioned. Then you will actually find Domino's. I think there is a Starbucks, order at Starbucks, and so on and so forth. These are all the ones where there is a monetary value, may not necessarily be totally dependable, right? So that is where I think we put this particular scales as adjective, which is not so essential, and a substantive, which means absolutely essential, meaning without which you will not be able to perform that particular task. When we developed this one, we used the scale of friend and nice and friendly and friend indeed. We've actually progressed from those six scales. Now we have actually have about 10 scales. So that is where we are at on this particular grade. Right, probably by Voice 2023, we might have published the paper and may have an actionable framework for us to test apps with live data. So that is really the end game of this particular literature development. Finally, some thoughts on what you should be caring for and what you should not be caring for, and what are the things that you should ignore and not ignore. Uh, Life stage, and not just about the back, but you please go back through the funnel, and then of course all of it be feeding your business intelligence, building a very clear direction for your next big opportunity that is likely to hit. This is the final thought of my presentation. Holbrook again. Consumption experience derived is why people use your WAP solution or anything that you might actually look for, not the product, not the brand, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Thank you all for taking your time. We do hope you found some of it useful, insightful, if you will. And I'm happy to have any further conversations, any of contents of my presentation or anything else. You could please contact me on my email. Thank you so much for your time. Best wishes to all participants and organizers for rest of Voice 2022. And I do look forward to Voice 23. Cheers.